And a great pleasure to welcome actually back to the show. She was with us we were on another station here in town, but always great to have her back. A great talented actress and singer, and I wanted to bring her on to talk about her new CD. It's called Midnight Caravan, celebrating the great ladies of the glamorous nightclub era. We're joined today by Linda Purl. And Linda, I was just kind of checking the archives. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago we had you on, so it's good to talk to you again. How have you been?
Very well. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have a chance to chat with you again. Kind of been following you along on Facebook, and we were just talking before we went on. I know you just got back from a nice gig, I guess, over in, was it London or in Europe? I know that.
It was in London. I had so much fun. It's a beautiful cabaret club in London, and we were there for a week, and, it was heat with rain and freezing cold, and it didn't matter a bit. We just had a lot of fun.
And I guess, again, just for the audience tuning in, probably most people know the name, and obviously when they see on your face from work on television, but you've really branched out into the singing career. I know you've always done it, but I guess more focused on that nowadays, right? Or combination with the acting and the singing.
I would say it's a combination. It was a funny thing. I mean, as a kid, I did musicals, and I studied singing for a long time, and then as I got more, my career really was much more involved in television. In my 20s, I just started missing doing musicals, and I was taken to a friend of mine was doing a club act and asked me to come in and do a couple of duets with him. Jimmy Dunn, who is one of the associate producers on Happy Days, who was also a songwriter, and so that I did. It was so much fun. I had no pressure on me because it was his night. It was Jimmy's night. So I was just there to help him out. And the club owner came up to me afterwards and said, okay, so when are you going to do a cabaret act, which is about the most terrifying thing anybody had ever said to me. But he issued a challenge and then very wonderfully followed through and introduced me to two gentlemen who've become lifelong friends, David Galligan and Ron Abel, musical director, respectively. And they beat me through doing my first cabaret act, and it really was just, and I've, stayed working with them for 20-odd years, and we would just, create a new club act periodically, and then I'd go out somewhere and do it, either at a friend's club or some corporate gig would come along, but it was never from the point of view of wanting this to be a career move. It was really just for the joy of having music in my life and maintaining music in my life, and just over the years, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Big nod to Michael Feinstein because he's done so much for the American Songbook and really made cabaret a viable art form.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's actually coming to town as we talk tonight, tape tonight. Linda coming to town this week here in Sarasota. I had a chance to chat with him a couple of times. He really is I guess a torchbearer, if you want to say that, for this type of music. He always has been and continues to be.
He is, really. He launched it into the 21st century and is, I think, directly responsible for so many of us having a life at all in the world of cabaret. And, London was interesting. I don't know what I expected, but not what I got. I was kind of expecting kind of a tough crowd, kind of sit back and all right, prove it. It wasn't that way at all. They were just, leaning forward, and they were there to have a good time, and so we did. Anyway, this particular era of songs is just a favorite of mine. And a couple of years ago, in New York, I got to work with this amazing pianist, Ted Firth, and jazz pianist. And so much of the reason behind doing this was because I very selfishly just wanted to work with Ted and have that experience, which we did. And we got to do the show live in New York at Michael's. It was still up and running last year.
I guess the challenge, though, like you mentioned, doing a Broadway show, you have a script and you rehearse it over and over, and you kind of know, you have other characters to play off of and a storyline. In a cabaret act, I guess you do sort of have a bit of a storyline in a sense, but it really is a much more difficult thing to put together, I would think.
It's a different, it is. I've never attempted to write a play, and I had such wonderful help doing this, curating this, some really smart friends I'm blessed to have, and so they helped me pull together the songs. And my chief ally in this is a wonderful gal named Deborah Grace Weiner, who runs a great series in New York called Lyrics and Lyricists. So she has this encyclopedic knowledge of the Great American Songbook, so we were able to kind of find some nice chestnuts, but also some lesser-known tunes, and in the chorus just pay homage to the great girl singers, and it's such a catalog of amazing women, and they're kind of intriguing to me because at a time in which women weren't necessarily having careers like they were, and certainly not out on the road. I mean, I think it was a tough life for these ladies out on the road with the big bands, and it was certainly not a traditional life. I'm sure they made big sacrifices in their personal life in order to keep the music going.
Sure.
So they intrigue me certainly as musicians, their taste and choice of songs, but also for being sort of a kind of pioneer spirit about them.
I'm going to say like Mabel Mercer, I guess Blossom Dearie, Rosemary Clooney, of course. I guess those are some of the women. Peggy Lee, those great singers of the 40s and 50s, maybe even before that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Polly Bergen and
sure.
Gerald, and I mean Polly, who had I fortunate to have Polly as a friend, and she has amazing stories about being out on the road. And her musical director was a fantastic fellow named Luther Henderson, and Luther happened to be black, and they would be out on the road, and they would not allow Luther to come through the front door. So Polly wouldn't either. She was like, Luther doesn't come to the front door with me, then we're a no-go. And at some point, she was invited to do a concert on television, and they said, you're invited to do this, but you can't possibly have an African-American conductor. And she said, well, that's very nice, but then I won't be doing your show. So she forced them into this event. And, so Polly was having those kinds of adventures and very much a part of the civil rights movement in her own way.
Sure, yeah.
Just really out of, friendship, out of what was the right thing to do, but also with dedication to her music.
When you look at her career, I mean, obviously with the early television, the variety shows, and then, like you said, the nightclubs and acting as well, and I guess she went into like a business as well, a businesswoman.
She did,
so, everything.
She's a real maverick. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great talent. We'll just go some of the songs in there, and I had a chance to listen to it. We've already played a few of the cuts on our station, Linda. Great selection of songs. Obviously, Autumn in New York, standards people are going to know, and I Thought About You, and Shall We Dance, My Ship, Caravan, My Romance, and some lesser-known standards as well. So you have a good mix here.
Well, good. I'm glad you think so. That's what we were aiming for. Yeah, Tis Autumn is not the song I had ever heard, but it's something that Nat King Cole used to do, and anyway, I just love it. It's a simple tune. It's kind of evocative of autumn, and it's a little bit flirtatious, and anyway, I was intrigued by it and happy to be introduced to it.
Yeah, and this one you did, I think the last time we talked, the CD you had, it was a live performance. This is an in-studio. So do you enjoy doing that, or is it the same, it's the same enjoyment, just different, doing live as opposed to in studio?
Yeah, I sort of had my cake and ate it, too, because we got to perform it live, and then we went, as soon as we finished our run in New York, we went right into the studio. So I got to have sort of that, usually, if you're in the studio, you just run the music down and then record it, and you don't have that chance to have rehearsed it, certainly in front of an audience, as much as we did, but...
Right.
So that was a very nice momentum for us, I think, going into the studio, and very much informed what all of us did musically. Yeah. And by that time, we had drinks after the show a few times, so we had all bonded and fun stories about kids and, all that good stuff, and had a few good laughs. So it was, I think that all helped us, certainly made it more fun.
Do you do it with the musicians with you, or do you do it with the pre-recorded?
Oh yeah, no, we did it all together.
Together, yeah. I think that makes it better in a sense. I had a chance to talk to Dina Martin a few times, and she talks about being in the sessions with her dad, Dean, and of course with Frank, where they all were in there with them, with the musicians. I think it makes it better in a sense.
I think so too. It's funny. It's really an intangible, and we went back and we would correct and tweak and punch things in, but yeah, there's that excitement, especially if you're used to being a live performer. Then there's really nothing. There's no drug quite like it. It's a really fun challenge. Kind of elevates everything, I think.
Talking with Linda Purl. The name of the CD is, excuse me, Midnight Caravan. And again, for those folks that may not have been with us before or heard our previous interviews, you know Linda from her work on television. And I was flipping through, I was off one day and I happened to watch METV down here. I saw an episode of Hawaii Five-0, and who popped up but Linda Purl.
Oh, my gosh. That was a long time ago. I hate to think what year that was.
I think it was mid-'70s, but you played a babysitter.
That's the old Hawaii Five-0.
The original, yeah,
Not
Jack
the new
Lord.
One. Yeah.
You were kidnapped by, I guess there's a former Army veteran or something. Dane Clark played him. Great old character actor.
Dane Clark, yeah, he sure was.
How was that doing that show? That was, I guess, obviously early in your career. That must have been a fun experience.
It was great. You know, they flew me first class to Hawaii. I stayed at the Colony Hilton. What could be bad? It was great.
Did you deal with Jack Lord much? I heard he was pretty much the boss of that show.
He was lovely. He was charming. He was, no, not much. And but, you know, he was legendary. And I grew up in Japan, so Hawaii Five-0 was kind of a special. Hawaii was just sort of special. We'd go there on the way coming back to the States, and also it had sort of that Asian American blend to it, so it was very fun to be able to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, that show was huge. I grew up watching that when it was on originally, and like I said, it wasn't just the United States. That had an international audience to it, and like I said, Japan. So that was huge. And of course, Homeland. Recently, you've been on that, so that's quite a series to be on, huh?
It was a lot of fun, and earlier stuff is a lot of movies of the week, but also the Happy Days of Matlock. Those tend to be the two shows that folks sort of knew me from. And then I went on to several years later, I went on to The Office and Homeland and True Blood a little bit, Desperate Housewives. So suddenly I kind of gained, especially after The Office, I kind of got, I was cool again with my son's friends. I remember the first year I did The Office, we liked to go skiing, and, you know, you come in for a lunch break or something, you have your helmet off, and so you see people's faces, and people were like, oh, wow, there's Pam's mom, and it was like major brownie points from my son. That was really fun.
Well, I guess you got to look at today, especially with the dramas and comedies too. This is kind of, in a sense, a golden age of TV with a lot of the great shows on cable now that are now they're shorter series, but they're much more powerful episodes. I guess higher budget too. You can just tell the production values are very good.
Oh yeah, tremendous. Very different lighting. Very different with high def TV.
Yeah. Well, you've been traveling around a lot. I know you got some gigs coming up soon, mostly out in California, right? Or you go around the country?
Yes. Seems to be about once every 6 weeks or so I'm on a plane to somewhere. I guess the next one, I go down to Mexico on Monday, and then we go up to Sacramento a couple weeks later, up to Folsom. And you're right, yeah. And then the next gig also is back up somewhere there in Northern California.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly.
Well, we got to get you over here to Florida sometime, Linda.
Yes, please. That would be great. I would love that.
Get you out here. And the name, again, of the CD is Midnight Caravan. And I guess available at all the sites, Amazon and iTunes, I suppose. You have a website, too, Linda? I guess we can get it there,
I do,
right?
LindaPurl.com.
It's PURL.com.
Yep.
So great. Linda, appreciate you taking a few minutes. I know you're kind of in a little rest period there, but we wanted to have you on. And again, we're playing it down here in Sarasota, Bradenton, and congratulations on it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share your audience.
Great. Linda, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining us.